All right, welcome back, ghouls. How is
Welcome
everybody?
back, everybody. We're doing great.
Hello.
Survived a show.
Yes,
Woo!
I was going to ask, how are my girls up in Iowa? Everybody okay?
It was windy. It was very windy.
The footage actually that you shared was scary because that looked like it was on your doorstep, and that was in Manila, right?
It was, yeah, maybe a quarter mile away.
It was not,
And it was a big tornado.
People wonder why we stay in Florida and why we hang out here. It's because at least we have a warning. Until Jim Cantori shows up, we're safe.
See, well, we had a warning.
Oh,
They
yeah.
told us 2 days ago that we could have this happen.
Yes, they have.
And
they
so
warned us.
I'm going to stay in Iowa because hurricanes are big. And tornadoes, well, they're big, they're not that big. The chances of you getting hit, even if you are in the area, is, I mean, look, we were half a mile away. Fine. If it's a hurricane, we're toast, So I'm going to stick with the tornadoes.
Well,
we have cellars
Yes,
in Iowa.
we have basements, so
we have in-ground pools.
Not everybody goes to the basement. They sit outside and watch it. So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously that's where all the video got taken.
Maybe we shouldn't come out of the basement.
No.
So our next episode, our first one, was a huge success. This time we're talking about the Nathaniel Hamlin Museum. This two-story red brick building, located in Audubon, Iowa, was built in 1890 as the county home for the area's indigent and disabled. Residents included the impoverished and persons with physical or mental disabilities who had no way of supporting themselves. Those who were able-bodied were expected to pitch in with the chores and maintenance of the house and the 160 acres of farmland on which it sat. In 1910, the caretaker's cottage was added onto the south side of the building to house the stewards and their families. In 1970, the county officially shut down the farm. It was originally decided that the main structure would be torn down, but thankfully that decision was put on hold. The Audubon County Historical Society obtained the house and 8 acres of the surrounding land in 1976. It was then that the decision was made to name the property after the first settler in the county, Nathaniel Hamlin. Today, the Audubon County Historical Society runs what is now known as the Nathaniel Hamlin Museum and Park, a complex dedicated to preserving and sharing the history of Audubon County, Iowa. So this one I've been to twice, but you guys have been there a lot more.
Well, twice with you. You've got some EVPs from the very first time we went, which was 2 years ago. And then since then, we've been there twice with you. And then I think 2 more times. So I'd say a total of 5, I think
4 or 5 times. Becky,
how many times have you been there, Becky?
3 or 4. I think 4.
There's one time you. Yeah, I think
that was last fall. Otherwise, I think I've been there
every time. I agree with us.
Yeah. I don't miss too much if I can, but sometimes I have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to,
I'm the same way. I'm just further away.
Yeah.
You are. Crazily, you've been quite a few of these with us, so it'll be fun.
I'm going to be on quite a few more this year.
Yeah.
It'll be a good year. Okay, what do we want to talk about, Jean?
Well, first, what drew you to the Nathaniel Hamlin Museum? How did you hear about it?
A gentleman by the name of Kevin Hacker. Thank you. I knew it was Hacker. I couldn't think of Kevin. He approached us to go on an investigation with his team. His team was too small. Actually, it was the Missouri State Pen, and the Missouri State Pen is a wonderful place. We ended up going with his team there, but it's very expensive, and so it's beneficial to have a big group of people.
Plus, it's a big place,
so huge.
It's nice to have
a lot to
where
cover
you
it.
can break into 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah, you won't run into each other at all. It's
No,
just
it's
huge.
multiple buildings and
Yeah.
it's big.
So anyway, when we went to meet with him for the first time, and he had mentioned when we were first meeting with him that he had been to the Hamlin House. And I was very well aware of it. I'd worked in Audubon for 5 years at a business there. And actually we had taken one of our, we'd done a photo shoot there for one of our office pictures. And so I knew it. And he said that they don't advertise it, but they do allow paranormal groups there. And we're like, okay. And he gave his contact, and really shortly after that, it was that same year, because we went with him in March to Missouri Penitentiary, and then September we went to Audubon.
And our
to
good friend
ourselves.
Lori, who is in River to River, also has connections there. And
Yeah.
so she helped coordinate some of that as well.
Yeah. So we got in really in that same year that we learned about it.
Wow. And what brought you back? I mean, I know that first one, it really made an impression.
Well, it did. You will have some EVPs that Becky got in upstairs in room 7. Really the one, I'm not going to tell you what it says, so that you can listen to it and make your own judgment. But it's what most groups would call a Class A EVP, which means we don't have to tell you what it says. You're going to hear it. It's clear as day. And so when you get those are shiny unicorns. You don't get them that often. Because and the last time we went, when Jean was there and Becky was there, we had a handful of EVPs and we argued them what they were saying, because nobody could decide. That's the norm. So this one that Becky captured, there's no doubt what it says. It is very clear.
Well, let me play that real quick, because
Okay,
I mean,
great.
it is a good one. You've given you had a lot of encounters with him. You're calling him what, the grumpy man?
Yes. Well, for all the intents and purposes, yeah. I mean, that first time we were there, between that EVP, which we stopped and listened to and heard it right away. We knew what was going on. An Estes method and a rod session. We had go home, leave all evening long, and all usually a male voice.
Yes.
Tell the folks what happened towards the very end of the night.
Yeah, at the very end of the night, we're doing an Estes method. And
tell them what that is, just to remind them.
Okay, so that's when we have a ghost box, or we use necrophonics, and we're putting it through a pair of noise canceling headphones.
Has on.
Usually I'm covering my eyes or trying to do some sensory deprivation, so I'm really just using my hearing to listen. And I didn't need to be sensory deprived to hear so clearly through the headphones. They're not leaving. Which made me laugh. I'm sorry, Crabby Man, but no, we're staying overnight.
I finally, right before that happened, I think I can't remember if we did a Facebook Live, but he had said, go home, leave. And I finally said to him, listen, dude, I get it. You don't want us here, and that's fine. You go to whatever room of this house you want to be in, and you ignore us, and we're fine with that. But there's other spirits that want to talk to us, because we're not leaving. And it was within 2 clicks after there, he went, they're not leaving. And it's like, no, we're not. No. Sorry.
What I think
so we were up front.
What I think really stands out about this spirit in particular, this entity, because a lot of times when we do these, we get some evidence, it could be an intelligent entity of some kind. We could be picking up residual energy, and some of it has natural explanations. We're hearing the house settle, or we're hearing footsteps, we're hearing things creak. So some of them have explanations, and sometimes we get instances like this where, we know that was an intelligent being, and he was fed up with us. So what stands out to me was the first time I was there, which was last September, actually, September 2023. We were doing another Estes method in the parlor, which the parlor gets a lot of activity,
Mhm.
and we were streaming it. Amy, you were going over, I believe, Facebook Live. And we had somebody tune in. She said that she was able to detect somebody there. Her name was and she felt like Anne was moving up the stairs, but she was afraid to approach us. And what was really impressive about this was that at the same time that Melanie is giving us this information through Facebook Live, she's not even there with us. She's relaying this through the chat. Dawn, I believe you were on the headphones. You were confirming the things that she was saying, even though you couldn't see the conversation or hear the conversation. You were confirming it.
Melanie says she senses an energy coming up the stairs. Anne, there, she got Anne. Okay. Anne, are you here with us tonight? Okay. Melanie says it's a female energy speaking. She's about 30 years old, so I wonder if that's Anne. That would make sense. That would. It is Anne. Thank you, Anne.
What Melanie had said was that Anne is there and she's constantly trying to help a man who just doesn't want her help. And to me, I mean, that sounds like the grumpy man.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
100%.
for sure.
I think this house is very much an example of a mix of residual and also intelligent haunting. I think it's got both. I don't see, a lot of physical haunting to do with it, but certainly an intelligence and certainly residual. I think on one of the ones that we have, if you're able to queue it up at some point in time, it's one Becky got from that room 7. It's a separate one. They started off there, they got to go home, they went back, and then they got a cough.
Please straighten them out.
And a piano keys.
Okay, we know you're in the chair.
And so to me, that's very residual. That's very just coming out of the, probably ether, something that's happened a lot of times and it's just embedded in the walls kind of thing.
Yeah, it's happened. In the book there where people write their paranormal experiences, that was like, I think I read that maybe at least once, that's another group has heard piano playing. Yeah. And it sounds very much out of tune. And the actual piano in the house was one floor below us. So yes. It sounds like the piano is not downstairs. It sounds like it's upstairs, maybe in the next room. I don't know. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's an organ in the chapel.
Yeah, I know.
There is. This
right.
is not an organ. This is not well, I suppose some organs can sound like pianos. So I'll take that back. I'll take a step back on that.
That was like an electric organ or not. I don't remember.
It's a pipe organ. I believe it's a pipe organ.
Yeah. Pump organ. An old pump organ.
Oh, okay. So it's an organ.
Yeah. So
probably not it.
I have no idea if it works. I don't know.
No. It's small enough. I don't think it's a pipe organ. That would be really big. But another thing, when we were doing those EVPs in that room, Kelly was with me and we sat on the bed and she first tried the dowsing rods and we were getting activity with that. And the room is very small and there was just like a single bed that we were sitting on. And then off to the right, there was a chair. And Kelly says, "Can you point the rods to where you're sitting?" And it immediately went to the right. And that's where that chair was. And then we started using a pendulum and asking questions with the pendulum too. And I think that using the pendulum and the dowsing rods, I think we were stirring stuff up enough that we did get the EVPs. I think we're going to have to try that again. It just seemed like, and at one point, my pendulum just vibrated. It didn't answer yes or no. It just vibrated. And you can hear Kelly say that pendulum is vibrating, Becky. It's just vibrating.
It's moving. It is vibrating. I can see it.
But I think we stirred up enough that we got a pretty good EVP, or a couple of them anyway.
Becky, you had a lot of success in that room 7, right?
Yeah. And they told us that we would have, that is an active room. And it's a guy's room, but I don't remember I want to say his name is George. Does that sound right? Is that what I thought? Maybe one of the gals one time when they gave us a tour, they said his name was George, but
I'm going to rely on you. I don't remember.
Because we've been to so many investigations and heard so many different names. It's hard. I'm getting them mixed up. But it wasn't
the night that we were there.
Yeah. And he wanted us to go home because it was past his bedtime. I mean, when you stop and think about it, those people, if it's the residual haunting, they're in bed. They wouldn't be staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning. Or actually, we did this at 9 o'clock at night. I think that's what it read on my recorder, that it was at 9 o'clock. So they probably were in bed. So.
And the night that we were there last too, we had Robbie, the caretaker, come in to reach out. I know he's had a lot of interactions with some of the entities there. And he did reach out to a George. He was calling for a George when he was asking, who is here. So it is possible that was George's room.
I want to say that just rings a bell, like a George. I mean, George sounds like a grumpy old man's name. Why not? Mm-hmm. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's interesting.
Also, what we tend to have, I remember in that house, which is not always the same with every other houses, we've had very successful REM pod activity, which I don't know that in most cases we don't have REM pod activity, but every single place, every time we've gone there, we've had a REM pod hit, and that's unusual. And then also the tripwires. Mm-hmm. And the tripwires is our 12-foot long string that has
individual EMF detectors on
like every
foot. Yeah.
And the one thing that happened with that, we have had a lot of activity up in the parlor, in the second floor in the parlor with that. But the strangest activity by far that we've ever had with our tripwire was, I think it was right before you came, Jean. Unfortunately, when we were in Audubon before you came, because we did it again when you came and didn't have the success, but it still made it interesting. We went out to back behind the property is a pioneer cemetery. And so we went back to take a look at the different graves, and we had brought our tripwire out. I don't know why, because there's, we thought it would be interesting to see, because it's dirt and it's trees and it's
there's no electrical
out there. Mm-hmm. And we turned it on and laid it on the ground, and purple, if you've ever seen us, purple is what we would call the baseline, where there's no electromagnetic field activity. And then it goes blue, green, yellow, orange, red. We turned it on, laid it on the ground, and it lit up every color. No matter where we put it on the ground outside, it stayed multiple colors. We call the disco lights for the whole time we were out there. But the strangest part is once we came back onto the lawn, where it became back into the area of the house and of the property, and we went maybe 6 feet onto the lawn, turned it on, laid it back down, it was purple baseline, no activity whatsoever.
We then went back and checked with the
Robbie.
Robbie and the actual some of the board members that were there that we were talking to, and asked if there was anything out there, any buried electrical, anything like that. And they were like, absolutely not. That was the cemetery. And so nobody's been digging in there.
Right.
And so that made it even more so interesting.
And then the next time we went out with Jean, we tried it again, and it was purple the whole time. It didn't light up at all. So, and sometimes it can do that when it's losing its batteries, but it stayed normal. It reacted normally. Once we took it back inside, put it up in the parlor, it stayed purple. It blinked blue every now and again, like it does when we're up in the parlor, or maybe. And so it did eventually lose its batteries towards the end of the night, because I think we had it on for such a long time. But that was very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what that was.
I don't know either. I can't explain it.
Well, didn't you ask some questions? I think it wasn't the last, well, yeah, it was when you had your tripwire out there. Didn't you ask some questions and you found out that it was a Native American lady? I thought you got that.
I remember you had the dowsing rods and you made contact. I do believe it was
yeah, with you. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes. When I second time I went out there, I did take my dowsing rods. And I got a lot of, we were talking to a Native American woman out there. I don't think I had them the first time.
But did you have your tripwire? Amy, did you have your tripwire too?
We had
the second time, yes, and nothing happened with it.
Yeah, I didn't.
But I got hits on the dowsing rods as to, talking to somebody, plus kind of locating where graves were.
And just to clarify, that doesn't mean that there's ghosts. I mean, and it's so cliche for it to be a cemetery, but that doesn't mean that just because we make communication with something, it doesn't mean that there's ghosts roaming around, spirits, they're going to pop up on you. It basically just means that there is something intelligent nearby, and it's possible it could also be residual, but we're just picking up on that energy.
Right.
These entities, they float through. Very recently, we had an investigation. It was actually a poltergeist case, which is a huge misperception as to what a poltergeist is. And I think it's because the movie changed the terminology for a lot. Poltergeist is not a ghost. It is a living person's, basically a psychokinetic tantrum. And so we had a case recently that there was poltergeist activity. We were able to narrow it down to the target. Everything had cleared. There was no activity after this person had left. But while we were there, you did pick up on another female who was talking to you, and she said, well, I'm just from the area. I'm just kind of passing through. Not word for word, but that was the gist of what she was communicating with you.
And we picked up, we did, in that same investigation, we did a necrophonics and picked up a name. And the name checked out with a person who had just recently passed away and had ties to the location. So it was really interesting. It just really brought together and validated that whole session.
Well, it was a very small town too. Granted, I'm from Florida. I'm from one of the largest retirement communities in the nation, but to me, it's hard to call that a town.
Oh, yeah, no, we were in it. What, maybe 600 people?
I didn't see a stoplight.
No, it's probably 200.
200? Oh, is it? Okay, I couldn't remember how big it is. I'm not going to say the town name. I don't want. Yeah, I don't think it needs to be said.
House, yeah.
It's maybe 200 people.
Yeah, to me, I would not have known I was in a town if you guys hadn't taken me there.
It had a bar. Yeah. It had a gas station. It's a town.
That's all you need.
Right.
It's two requirements. And a co-op, yeah. So it has to have those three things.
Yeah.
And Audubon itself isn't much bigger. Audubon is a collection of little tiny towns.
Audubon County, but Audubon itself is 1,700 people, almost 1,800 people.
Yeah.
And then that's the largest town in that county.
Yeah, it's a very community down here.
Yeah. Well, the town we live nearest, Manning, is 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Nell is 800. So.
And where Becky lives is very small. 400,
450.
I don't know. It's not that much. It's probably more like 350, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So she's very small. It's very small.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're too busy growing food for the rest of the country. We don't have time to have little towns around here. Big towns. That takes up the farmland. How are we going to feed America?
Right.
You know what's mind-blowing is when I was on my way, and that was right after our most recent investigation of the Nathaniel Hamlin Museum. I was on my way home. I was driving back to Omaha, and I pulled over on the side of the road just to take some pictures because I do that. And there was corn I'm not talking about growing. There was tiny individual kernels of corn all down the highway.
Oh, somebody was taking stuff to the co-op.
Yeah. Moving stuff out of the bin
Or something. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that's just mind blowing because, the cornfields, they were all plowed. There was nothing.
Yeah.
No.
But
nope, it was too early for anything when you were here.
Yeah.
Now they're all planted.
They're planted right now. Yeah.
Well, right, all of them. A lot of them are.
Probably selling it and getting the bins empty, getting ready for next fall.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah. Yep. Follow the yellow brick road, the yellow corn road.
Yeah.
That was accurate. And I did. It got me back. So yeah, I was there month ago now.
Yeah.
Gosh, time flies.
Right.
And so we got to go over all of the evidence, and I think this time was just as successful as my first, and it sounds to me like it's pretty much the same every time. It's a very good, very active place. So we actually got a lot in this last investigation, and just some phenomenal stuff. One of the things that really impressed me was towards the end, we were actually getting ready to pack up, and you hear, and it was very clearly a man's voice. You hear it just like he was yelling from upstairs. And I mean, Dawn and I both heard it. We kind of looked at each other, and, Amy, Becky, I don't think you guys had heard it at the time, but it was actually shocking because, this is the stuff that we want to get, but it's so rare that when it happens, you have to actually process, wait a minute, that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, reviewing the evidence and me with my recorders, dropping them everywhere. Dawn, I heard your voice actually upstairs say, "There's recorders everywhere."
That's what I did. Recorders everywhere.
But what we had heard was actually one of two sounds captured. They were a minute apart. You and I heard it the second time. But the first time, the recorders, there was one in the dining room, and there was another in the hallway between the club room and the military room. So there was those two recorders were downstairs. I didn't have any upstairs at this time because it was absolutely freezing, and I didn't want to drag my Florida self up to there to have to retrieve them. I was borderline hypothermic as it was. So
it wasn't that bad.
It was a record for me. It was 19 degrees. Oh, just remember, you love your job, Jean. You love your job.
Yeah.
That was a record. My prior record was 27 degrees. And so, but the two recorders downstairs also captured what we heard. And it was awesome. Let me play the first one. Let me play. That is actually the first time, and that's when none of us heard it. Basically, it's 3 syllables, and the closest we could come up with was "bring it back."
Oh.
So this is the one that Dawn and I actually heard.
Okay, let's see if we can hear that.
Audio, what do you think, Jean? Audio, what do you think, Jean?
Both the dining room and the hallway, still not really clear, but you can get, on the third syllable, it does sound like a hard B, like back.
Yeah.
The hallway was, it was almost as, the dining room was the best, so suggesting it was in that area.
Okay.
But the hallway was also pretty good. Yeah, the closest I could come to was Bring It Back.
Okay.
Who took anything? I never took anything. Did you?
No. Just wonderful memories is all I took away.
Nothing that I didn't bring.
Maybe they meant something that something we brought that we were using to communicate. Maybe.
Oh, sure.
Oh, a recorder?
Maybe.
Yeah. Or the trip lights or the REM pod. The REM pod was real big on that trip with you this last March.
Yeah, I know half the time I wonder if our REM pod even works, and then we go there and I'm like, oh no, it
works.
Well, and didn't you have cat ball activity too?
Yes, and that's a rarity too. This
I think we've only ever had cat ball activity one other place.
Yeah,
so.
And this one had the cat.
I just got a cat ball today when I got my new recorder, and it doesn't work on carpet. You're not supposed to have it on carpet. It wouldn't work on my carpet. And then when I took it out and put it in the kitchen floor, it has to roll in order for the light to come on. It can't be if you just go touch it.
Oh, really?
So, yes.
There's a button on them that if you touch the button, it'll make them go.
Yeah.
And then but so that way is if it rolls, it'll roll on that button and then that'll set it off. You can also kind of set them up so that you could touch that button and set them off.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they have to roll to get that. There's a couple different kinds. We have two different kinds. One has got the little button on it. The other one, you pretty much have to shake or really roll to get it to do anything.
Mine has the button on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Just like that.
Just like that.
You turn it on and then you wait, you set it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you wait.
Yep.
And I mean, I went and stood by it and tried to bounce up and down on the floor, and no vibrate. Does it pick up vibrations?
No, you just have to touch it. You have to touch it.
Yeah.
Well, I touched it. If it rolls, it'll go off, but it won't. If you touch it, it won't go off.
Some of them are way more sensitive than the others. I think the newer ones coming out are less sensitive.
Yeah, because ours you touch it and it goes off.
Yeah, this one doesn't take much either. But there was one, I was on the USS North Carolina recently, and we had one in the sick bay in the operation room. And that one, it would go off on command, but you could shake the shelf. I actually went up and I shook the shelf that it was sitting on and it wouldn't go off. I jumped around, I hit the wall. I mean, I did everything I could except hit the ball and it would not go off. But then when we were talking to it again, it would light up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So some of them, it takes a lot. But yeah, I definitely agree with the REM pod too. The REM pod, I think at the museum is where I've seen the most REM pod responses. And I think we had a lot of success with it this time because we brought in Robbie, who is the caretaker of the museum. And he's had a lot of encounters with these entities.
Yes.
So
we had him on one other trip with us, one other investigation with us, and both investigations were highly successful with him there. I would still say the other ones we've had were still successful, but it is, I think, a different level.
It goes up a notch
when Robbie's there, and it's very appreciated. And he just knows how to talk to them and to get them to respond. It's amazing.
He genuinely cares about them too. I know,
so obvious.
If he wants you to be very respectful, which of course we always are. So if groups go in there and they're not good.
There was
go ahead.
There was actually a group in I think the night before us.
Yeah, 2 nights. Yeah, the 2 nights. They weren't respectful.
And that not only, did we think that it may have upset whatever entities were there, but it actually upset Robbie. He was very open about that he did not like the way that they behaved. He didn't like the way that they addressed the residents, of the home. So
I mean, that's something that we're very particular about when we investigate, that we're going into someone else's space. And, if someone walked in your house and was, show yourself and do something for me, or I'm gonna, and got real aggressive, you're gonna kick them out, right? Or you're not going to, or you're not going to put up with that, or you're going to go somewhere else and go away from them.
Right.
We have never been real provocative like that with our investigations. We just don't believe in it. We think you need to treat spirits with respect and dignity. It's their place. You're the guest. Yeah. And, and that's just how we've always operated. And I think because of that, we frequently have a lot of good success in connecting.
For me, I'm going to give a shout out to Grant Wilson from TAPS. Go back to how we met at Strange Escapes with Amy Bruni. Grant was at the very first one we attended, and he said ghosts are people too. And up until then, for whatever reason, that hadn't occurred to me. And that was very profound for me. And I think it has changed the way I investigate. It's evolved the way that I think, and in a very positive way, to where I come in and am very respectful. Not that I don't think I'm not a person not to be, but it's just changed the way I investigate. I'm like coming into their house and trying to be, hi, my name is Amy. I know I'm here but we're just here out of respect to talk to you and to learn about you, because that's what we like to do.
And needless to say, like the Hamlin house was a person's residence. You are in their house, their living space, where they lived their lives. They ate, they slept, they did what they worked. And it doesn't make sense to me to go in and be aggressive.
Well, and especially we're on a poor farm, like that. And so a lot of these places we go investigate were hospitals or poor farms or asylums, and so people that are in those are sometimes at the lowest times of their life. And so to go in there and be provocative and disrespectful is not going to get you anywhere, but problematic.
And there were a lot of happy and unhappy souls that passed through there. It was the county poor farm, built in 1890, and then it served as their county farm, their county house, all the way to the 1950s. So, and they could have as many as 18 residents in there at a time. So you've got people who are coming through, they're either just down on their luck and have nowhere to turn, or they have a mental or physical disability that has basically hindered their ability to function as a normal adult. And so for some, they went into these places and they became families. And for others, they were just passing through and they weren't happy to be there. They weren't proud to be there. So you don't know. It's basically approaching a stranger. It's the same idea, Amy. Basically approaching a stranger, you don't know who you're talking to or what they're going through.
Right.
So, always be respectful.
Yep. And I think for our group, that is, in the last few years, our evidence has just been off the charts for us, comparative, I think, to early on. Many more EVPs, Estes method sessions, and spirit box sessions, and the tripwire, and just all this stuff has really been very positive, and a lot of evidence. I mean, for us, I know we bring people with us who are intrigued and they ask to come, and so they come and they'll sit with us, and a lot of times we'll have an EVP, or the lights will go off, or we'll have a decent Estes method, and they're looking at us like, and we're like all giddy, and they're like, really? It's like, this is cool. This is, you don't get full body apparitions. You don't get, that's a diamond, for an investigator.
One of us has seen one in 10 years.
Right?
Now, shadow people we've seen more
Yes.
frequently, but
Yeah.
a full body apparition one time, 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's because of all the movies and the TV. Reality TV isn't reality. So those shows, they have to produce evidence in order to stay on the air. And I've had people who have worked with some of those productions and told me that they were expected to sign a waiver that says, if you don't produce evidence, we will. And I mean, even one of the most famous ones, the one that we can't stand the most, they've flat out admitted, yes, we fake the evidence. They'll come right out on a podcast and say, oh yeah, we made that up. And it's the same reality TV that has miraculously made contact many, many times with fictional characters. So, but I think that's what sets you guys, you adjust as you find things that work and things that don't. And I think that's what sets us apart from ghost hunters. People, when they say, oh, you're a ghost hunter, I said, no. First of all, hunting ghosts is inhumane. And and we're looking for answers, not just for a thrill. And that's the people that were in a few nights before us, a night or two before us. They're ghost hunters. They're in it for the thrill. They want to come in, they want to yell, they want to stir something up. They just want the experience. Whereas we're more long-term in this. We're looking for answers.
Paranormal researchers.
Yes. So
but it's still fun.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. And it's still thrilling when you get something.
100%.
Well, yeah. That's a big high for us.
It is.
Yes. So
and really one of the
time we don't get anything. It's that 1% that keeps us doing it. And
the ones we tend to talk about the most are like the disembodied voices. So EVPs are things that we don't hear audibly, and they come up on our voice recorders. Disembodied voices are audible, like you hear them. I mean, Donna and I have been at a location where we heard a man say no. Right between us, and so disgusted. No. And it's like, holy shit, where did that come from? And we get super excited about that because that is not normal. Not normal.
Yeah. And actually I got one very similar. This was it was actually, my mom was on an investigation with me, like she does, and we were in St. Augustine. We were coming back really late. Yes, I know. Taking you girls to St. Augustine.
Next March.
Actually, the investigation I'm talking about is one that I'm absolutely taking you on. It is the St. Augustine Lighthouse. Yes. I have been there twice, and not only have I not been disappointed, I have been overly impressed, and that's kind of difficult for me to admit. I'm very skeptical in this field, and so I will pick things apart, and it really irritates a lot of people or disappoints them. The lighthouse has really blown me away twice. And in fact, the first time I was there, I dragged my poor husband along, who is a hardcore skeptic. He doesn't care if a spirit walks up and slaps him in the face. He's going to say, well, that didn't happen. And he was with me, and I was doing a spirit box session, and this man's voice comes right through and goes, basement. And my husband looked at me and went, I say basement? And the spirit box goes, basement. Husband goes, okay. So it was, and we actually, that one's phenomenal. I've got to post that online. I had a full conversation. When you go into these places, you assume you know who you're dealing with and who you're talking to. So the St. Augustine Lighthouse, I knew the history. I knew going in. I was reaching out to the people that I knew were there, and I had a full-blown conversation with somebody I never expected. He was a sailor who went down on a ship in the Matanzas.
Oh, wow.
And he basically he had been brought in with an artifact because they have an archaeological exhibit in the basement. And he was showing us his spoon. So that's,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, now that I think about it, I really have to post that one. I have to share that one. But we were coming back. This was the second time I was there with mom. We were coming back and we're pulling into the hotel parking lot. It's probably 1 or 2 in the morning. There's nobody around. Her and I are chit-chatting back and forth. We had the radio off. And we hear right between us a woman's voice go, "Hello." And I mean, it was like there was somebody riding in the back of the van. It was loud, it was clear, it had vocal tone. It wasn't like, I think I heard something. I actually slammed the brakes and we both stopped and looked at each other. And we actually checked the back of the van. We thought there was somebody in there.
Right.
And we rolled down the windows. We looked around to see if there was, somebody walking through the parking lot. There was nobody there. So that's
That's
that's one of the more
interesting.
exciting experiences that, mom and I have shared.
Who do you think it was?
With St. Augustine, there's really no telling. The hotel that we were staying at was actually a relatively new one for the area, but some of the staff had said, "Oh, there's weird things that happen on occasion." It could have been something passing through. It could have been something that was hitchhiking from the lighthouse.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. It was a hitchhiker.
Mm-hmm.
So, or maybe it was somebody passing through and I hit them with a van. I don't know. Not a real human. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I meant a spirit. So, yeah, we didn't have, that was the only disembodied voice was the one that we said, sounds like bring it back, but oh boy, do I have plenty of EVPs for you ladies.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll have you share those and,
so there's one, we were just talking about the REM pod. So this is clear. This is very, very clear. This is Class A. Class A meaning there's no question what it says.
What it says.
It's absolutely a voice, and it's very clear what it says. This is towards the end of the night. We are in the dining room of the cottage, which is attached to the side of the museum. And the REM pod had just gone off, and we were trying to figure out if one of us had set it off. And somebody says, "Oh, I think Becky just walked by it." So somebody didn't like the noise.
Well, Becky just walked by it. Yeah, no, reset it. Yeah.
Now I have a cleaned up version, but basically she goes, "Stop it."
Well, Becky just walked by it. Yeah, no, reset it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That one.
That's
awesome.
That's amazing.
That was so clear that I had to go back and listen to it a few times, and I was trying to place whose voice that was, because I'm like, that's too clear. It's got to be one of us. But that honestly sounds like a child.
Yeah, that's what I
agree.
It sounds like a little girl.
And was that in the dining room, the cottage dining room?
It was. We had the REM pod sitting on the credenza. It had gone off. You could hear it in the background. And I think somebody says, well, Becky just walked by it. So the next one, honestly, I don't like it. I do and I don't. First of all, it is so stereotypical, almost Ghost Adventures level EVP.
Oh no. Okay.
But when I heard this, I'm like, I don't even want to play it. It's so corny. It really is.
It doesn't say dude, does it? And then we'll be fine.
No.
Oh
no, but it's so cliche for an EVP. It really is.
Okay.
I'll play it.
Boo?
All right. So this is the enhanced one. So it's a man's voice and he's going, help me.
Oh, that is pretty stereotypical.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot, unfortunately. Yeah.
Ever. And yeah, I mean, I've gotten that in places that made sense. Like we've gotten that at the Moon River Brewing Company. I've had that, but I've had it in the room that was once a yellow fever hospital. So I've heard that before in places that make sense. This one I went, oh God, that's so cliche. I don't even want to share it.
And it's kind of cliche, but
it also makes sense here because of some of the that might have been there.
Well, if you think about it, when we had the first time I was there, now this was recorded the second time, but the first time I was there, we had that Estes method going while you were recording on Facebook Live. And that was when your friend Melanie chimed in and said, there is a woman, she's coming up the stairs. We had determined her name was Anne, and she was trying to help a man there who was unhappy and he didn't want her help. So now I'm thinking maybe he's changed his mind. Or maybe there's a part that we're missing, like, don't help me. So
I think that group was there the 2 nights before us that were not being respectful, and so it could be in response to that too.
Right.
There's all those military uniforms upstairs too. Maybe that is coming through from them
as a residual.
That's possible. That's possible. We don't know what took place, you know, with the people who were wearing those uniforms.
Right.
So,
and then Rob said too, he said that it was either David or Jacob did not like those people in that closet messing with those uniforms. He was upset that whoever was in there was upset with them. That's what the psychic told Robbie. So
that was the second time, the investigation before we showed up.
Yes. Yeah.
So now during that conversation, when he said, I think it had something to do with the uniforms, he was up there, he was asking for somebody named Jacob. And he had mentioned, he goes, oh, there's a few different names that I get here. But he kept asking for Jacob for some reason. And this one actually was from Amy's recorder. It's 3 syllables, and we think it's correcting Robbie. And this is, Amy, you and I listened to it immediately after the session, and we pulled it out. So I'll play that one.
If you'd like to just come out and sit with us for a little while. We would certainly enjoy getting to know you or anyone else that's in there.
It's very whispery, very whispery.
It is, but I think what we pulled out of it, and this was our idea when we were reviewing it at the time. We think it says, I'm David.
Yeah. Because that was what one of the psychics said. She said there's a David here too.
I have been looking on the research, and there are some names that are popping up. The 1985 census has 9 people there. And then from there, the census is kind of hit or miss. I haven't been able to locate them all, but there's several names. There's a Charlie that pops up a few times. But I've been searching for George, David, and Jacob.
George, are you here tonight?
Well, I think this is another awesome episode down.
Woohoo!
So we gained a pretty good deal of momentum with the first one. So I hope the second will be just as good.
Like and subscribe.
And make comments, please. And if you have questions or stuff, we'll do our best to answer them in the next episode.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Make a suggestion, ask a question. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Yes.